This is an article that came out in WND. Birth rate, now a hot topic in Europe. And yes, when I get to a certain point, they try to compare themselves to Africa. Africa is very fertile. Those people are reproducing and they're able to, and they're not struggling to do it. It is the average African woman has 7 to 8 children. Okay. And there are tons of women over in Europe that can't even have one baby. Plus, Europe is in a negative birth rate. Africa isn't. So please stop comparing yourself to Africa. Please just stop doing it. The low birth rate across much of Europe has been a concern for a long time. Now, with millions of immigrants flooding into the historically Christian nations, changing not just the politics and economics, but the culture, Europe faces a crisis of survival, according to Giulio Miotti, the cultural editor of El Foglio, I don't know, Foglio, who observed in a commentary at the Gatestone Institute that Europe is in a downward spiral, slowly dying out by failing to reproduce. For example, 42% of children under the age of 6 in Western Germany now come from migrant backgrounds. Europe, Giotti wrote, could become a museum or a cultural museum park for the nouveau riche of globalization, as the late historian Walter Lecker expected. But European leaders increasingly are expressing support for the one logical solution: have more children. Easier said than done. If you could have more children over in Europe, you would have seen it by now. They can't do it. They can't do it. There are countries that are even paying women to get pregnant and they still can't reproduce. So that's a genetic thing. I don't care how much they keep trying to avoid that. It's a natural extinction that they're going through. One leader, Giotti, cited that Italy's interior minister, Matteo Salvini, who said recently, I've heard colleagues say that we need immigration because the population of Europe is getting older, but I have a completely different viewpoint. I believe that I'm in government in order to see that our young people have the number of children they used to a few years ago, and not to transplant the best of Africa's youth to Europe. Salvini said, maybe in Luxembourg, they need to do this. They're talking about bringing people, especially men, from Africa into Europe to mate with the women. I mean, look, they're the most fertile people on earth are the dark races on the planet right now. It's sure not these Europeans, that's for sure. Okay, but in Italy, we need to help people have more children rather than bring in modern day slaves from Africa to replace the children we're not having. Wow. Maybe there's a reason why you're not reproducing. Look at how you think. The Italian leader said he prefers to keep Italy for Italians and start to make children again. Italy is really at the very bottom of the European countries that can't reproduce. They're struggling bad. Miotti explained Europe's establishment is therefore perfect, divided between the so-called Europeanists who believe new migrants are necessary to stop the EU demographic collapse, and the Eurosceptics who want to overcome it on their own. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban For instance, he has on Europeans to stop the demographic decline by investing more in traditional families. Salvini said, a country which does not create children is destined to die. He's got that right. Without children, you have no future. Period. We have created a ministry of the family to work on fertility nurseries, on a fiscal system which takes large families into account. He said, at the end of this mandate, the government will be measured on the number of newborns more than on its public debt. Catholic Bishop Andrew Fuyana of Cameroon also commented on Europe's birth rate. It's a very big thing, and I will dare to say that, especially with the backdrop of the Islamic invasion, if you look through history where the church slept, got diverted away from the gospel, Islam took the advantage and came in. This is what we are seeing in Europe, that the church is sleeping and Islam is creeping in. The article noted French President Emmanuel Macron called Africa's problem civilizational, and oh my goodness, he's talking about, African women having 7 or 8 children per woman, but that's the norm in Africa. Okay. I mean, the French cannot compare to Africa's fertility. In France, y'all are struggling. They are not. You can't make that comparison because you're going to look bad every single time. Okay. Present me the woman who decide being perfectly educated to have 7 or 8 or 9 children, Giotti wrote. The question Marcon implicitly raise is, how can Europe manage its educated people with their low birth rates while confronting massive African and Middle Eastern fertility and migration? It seems that Europe is in a demographic struggle with of the world. That doesn't make sense. In struggle with never mind, and can only lose. Time is running out, Giotti concluded. So yeah, he's right. I mean, the rest of the world is reproducing, and really that's where all the reproducing is happening on the earth. It's happening mainly in Africa and, well, really, technically the Middle East, that got renamed by the Brits. That whole thing is Africa, but they're the only ones really producing in a big way. I mean, y'all talk about the Mexicans, but even the Mexicans are not out reproducing the people in Africa. They're not. Okay? They're not. So please tell me what you think, ladies and gentlemen. They have to talk about these topics more openly now because it is very noticeable that these folks are not reproducing. It's even noticeable here in the US. It's very noticeable. They can't hide this anymore and try to pretend like it's not happening or you can't tell. Yes, you can. You can tell. But please tell me what you think. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell, and I will see you on the next video. Peace, family.